racing immediately. But a champion becomes a legend. Makybe Diva wins it again.
Yes, yes, yes. Wins the Everest. Glen Boss wins another big one.
Who's the Boss Season 3 continues right now. Adam Peacock alongside Glen Boss. Bossy, how are things, mate?
Mate, I'm great. Couldn't be better. Thank you, Adam.
And between us, a thorn between two roses. What, a rose between two thorns? Where is it? Glen Munsie. A man who has devoted his life to horse racing, and it's giveth and taketh the relationship. Punter, bookie, all-round good guy. How are we describing you, Muns?
Well, round would be pretty close to it. Hopefully I'm classified as a good guy, but no, racing's been very, very good to me. It's basically the only thing I've ever done, so there's no way in the world you'll find me potting it.
No.
So 5 generations of Munsies have been involved in the racing game. We're here for a Golden Slipper preview, a big Golden Slipper episode. We're looking forward to it. A man who's won 2 of them over there, thanks to some circumstances, which we'll get into.
Yes.
But Muns, it's the biggest race in the world for 2-year-olds. Were you 2 when you first set foot on a race course?
Oh, no. I'd been to plenty by the time I was 2.
In the womb?
Nah, yeah. Well, I turned 63 the other. I know I don't look it, but
No.
you know, I tell people I've been going to the races for 64 years. You know, my mum keeps saying my first carnival I went to was Grafton in 1962. I was born in February and Grafton's in July. And in those days, Dad would go to Grafton for a month or 5 weeks. And I remember Mum keeps saying, it was a flood that year. So I've been to, she hasn't missed a Grafton Cup since 1962, my mother, and she's 85 years of age now, and Dad's been dead 20 years, and she still goes. But, mate, I've never really wanted to do anything else. And it's a bit hard, like your dad's a jockey and grandfather was a jockey, great-grandfather was a jockey and things like that. You know, it's in your blood. But I can remember, you know, going to stables when I was 10 in school holidays and mucking out boxes and doing things like that. And then you get to know so many people involved in the racing game and people that are around nowadays, you say to them, oh, yeah, I remember your grandfather, and they'd look at you, and I remember your father, and it's just easy. I've got university degrees. And, you know, one of my proudest moments was 17 years after I graduated from uni, I actually got a job.
Congrats.
And Mum and Dad thought it was great. Yeah, that lasted a fair while. And now, you know, it's just something that you get up and it's easy to do because you like what you're doing. And that's the secret in life, I think. If you're doing something, Blake told me once, he said, if you love what you're doing, it's not really a job. So,
Well, I'm going to give you something you might love.
Mhm.
As a part of when you come on my show, our show, the guest, we have you like champagne? Do you like a champagne?
Yeah, you can retail it quite easily on eBay and things like that.
We have a champagne out of the Melbourne Cups. This is
beautiful.
just a toast.
One for Bossy.
Beautiful.
Yes.
You brought him with you today. You didn't leave him in a taxi or anything like that? No?
That will never happen again. Mate. That will never.
I was actually with you the night you left him.
Oh, I know.
I tell you what, you look the colour of something that's not quite pleasant when you walked in and you forgot him.
Munsie was there that night, and
You lost him?
Well, Munsie was hosting, and I had to do a bit of a thing with him, and I don't remember any of it. I don't remember any of the night.
To say it was a
basically,
blur
it was, yeah.
but the relief on his face when the bloke actually brought him back,
Oh, no.
it's
I'll put that there.
you know, it's one of those things you say, if only I captured that moment, it would be an award-winning photograph. Yeah.
Cheers to you, Muns.
Cheers.
Go
Cheers,
forever,
Muns.
mate.
Yeah, you
So much
can't believe how
respect.
much money these cups cost me.
Yeah.
Did you back any of them?
No, you know, I backed Makybe Diva once.
Once?
The Caulfield Cup.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Gold
He
Beat.
got rolled.
Yeah, and he keeps telling me, he said, but you know, if she wouldn't have won the Melbourne Cup as she won the Caulfield Cup. I said, I don't give a stuff.
Yeah,
I
we
said,
had
I
to-
only wanted her to win the Caulfield Cup. He said, but she would have got more weight
Best
in the
placing
Melbourne
you've
Cup.
ever been involved with, that
Yeah.
one, the
Yeah,
Caulfield Cup?
we had to sacrifice one, and that was the race we had to sacrifice. So,
So as usual, I took one for the team.
yeah,
Unlucky months. Now, before we get rolling with our Golden Slipper special, touch of the Kenny calendars right there, almost. AirTouch. We're going to mention AirTouch, Bossy. airtouch.net.au. Proud supporters here at Who's the Boss of our little program, and they do a great job of keeping everyone cool in summer, warm in winter, any way you want to do it. Bossy, you know it well. You know the drill. You're there. Coming off the 18th at your favourite golf course. Geez, it's a hot day. Got to make sure the house is all cool. Can do it on the app. Boop, boop, boop. AirTouch. Thank you very much.
yep, driving home basically before you get in the car, 20 minutes, get home, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Love the stuff. I was doing a shoot yesterday in Melbourne and in a house, and they didn't have any air conditioning. Melbourne was very hot yesterday, and I was sweating bullets in a robe. And I was sitting there thinking, these people have to get this air touch. I might have to organise it for them.
You're in a robe.
Yeah, doing a shoot
Oh.
for laddies. And
I thought that's just how you get around.
no, not really. But I was thinking these guys got to get one, so I might have to organise it for them.
Get an air touch, yeah. We got it in the studio here. It's beautiful.
brilliant.
Like, we sat in Sydney traffic, like getting here, and 2 hours before, and we just put the air conditioning on. Don't have to worry about it. It's the one thing you don't have to worry about when you're
Correct.
sitting in traffic. Airtouch.net.au. Check it out. And a mention of where you can find us on socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at Who's the Boss Pod. And before we get rolling, Boss, you got to make mention. We put it out on socials last week. Your little comment about Vauban.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, you got out to 8 or 9 to 1.
Ooh.
Like, ridiculous price, really. In a small field, a ridiculous price for that type of horse. You know what Gai and Adrian can do? Gai has repeatedly got horses from other barns and put speed back into their legs and turned them around. So I text Gai that night and said, congratulations, well done. And she said that was a great effort. So hopefully everyone followed me in and got some of that 9 to 1.
Yeah, found it nicely. So that's where to find us on socials, at Who's the Boss Pod, all over socials, everywhere. Let's get into our Golden Slipper preview show. It's a big Golden Slipper show. And before we get into this year's edition, it looks like a really even field and hard to find one. But Muns, you'll help us. Bossy, you'll find one as well. The race itself lends itself to so many fantastic yarns. They're 2-year-olds. They're not meant like trying to steer a bunch of 16 2-year-olds. It's going to create a bit of carnage sometimes and some great stories. You've won 2 of them, Bossy. Muns, how many have you backed?
Inspired, Darren Beedman. My best result on the slipper was Miss Finland in 2006. Got a great story there when we were running the operations there. Put a foot on it from day one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're up to about, holding about 800,000 come the Friday, and they used to have a call of the card. They had a Carbine Club luncheon at Randwick, then they'd have a call of the card for the slipper. So I went to the Carbine Club lunch and just go the call of the card. I'd been tipping everyone. They said, this will win the slipper. She'd got beat her first start at Rose Hill. She'd come after winning, after running in the Blue Diamond, hung really bad at Rose Hill, which is not unusual.
That's correct.
For Melbourne horses having their first go. And then I said, don't worry about that. David Hayes put blinkers on her. I said, this will win the slipper, right? So go to the call of the card and the luncheon and everything. Come back and I said, what was it like? I said, but said, got a bit of money out of a couple of things. So I said, they said, Miss Finland. I said, what? Oh, no, well, it's such a big winner. We thought we'd get something out. I said, I've had my foot on it for 4 months. It's 24 hours before the race, and you said, we'll get some money out of it. Yeah, so it took me about 12 hours to get over that, but when it steamed home and won the slipper, I was happy because it was a very, very big result for not only me, but for someone else. But, they couldn't get over the fact that I blew up so bad. Yeah. I said, well, have you just been in a cocoon for the last 4 months?
I want you to speak your mind.
No.
Well, she was a superstar from her very first start. They backed her to win a fortune her very first start at Flemington down the straight. She was very good.
Miss Finland raced in the Arrowfield colours, which segues beautifully, Bossy, into a moment in time in 1995. Young bloke, just arrived in Sydney, trying to make a name for yourself. And the Ladbrokes crew have done a great job with Jim Cassidy and yourself summing up this story with a bit of colour added to it. This is why you're in the robes. But seriously, take us through that 24 hours in 1995 when Lee Freeman got in touch about flying Spur.
Yeah, it was the most ridiculous week for me. Previously, I won on a 2-year-old for John Singleton, and they backed it, and they got $1 million out of the ring. Had one start for his first start in a race, and I thought it was my slipper ride. He went really sore on the Tuesday. His gallop had shin soreness, so they decided not to run him. Okay, so I'm without a ride.
Kicking stones,
stones, yeah, because the riders had already been done by then. Really, yes, everyone's cemented in, and so I'm sitting there on Friday evening, and Freddie gives me a call, and he said, "Bossy, you obviously haven't got a ride in the race. There's a chance you can ride Flying Spur, but you've got to keep this under your hat. Don't tell anyone." So immediately I told Sloane, my wife at the time, I said, I'm probably going to have a ride in the slipper. And he was 25 to 1, Muns, or about 25 to 1. But he had
He
a
come
bit
off running in the size.
the
in Melbourne.
size, and they put him in the paddock. And Anthony Friedman said, "No, mate, you should see this horse run around the paddock. We've got to put him back and maybe run him in the slipper." Anyway, Saturday morning comes. Freddie rings me, "Mate, you're on." Jimmy's been put out. He
This
can't
is
ride.
the jockey tape situation.
This is a
where
jockey
the
tape
stewards
situation.
Chucked
Yes,
him out of the sport for 2 years.
basically yes. And so Jimmy was sitting in the offices in town, couldn't do a thing. So I get the call up, bang, I'm on, and Freddie said to me when he legged me up, because there was a bit of a murmur about this colt. Like he was a very good colt, but he was a bit temperamental. And Lee said to me, he said, "Tell you what happened, Bossy. There's two things going to happen here. He'll either win or he'll run last. He's a very moody colt.
Yeah.
But you'll know by the time you get to barriers what colt you got." And I'm going, "What are you talking about, Lee? I've got no idea. What are you saying?" But by the time I got the barriers, I said to one of the boys on the barriers, I said, "This horse will he'll win the slipper." He went round like he was game face. I drew barrier one, give him a good ride, and beat our Mace K and Octagonal
Yeah.
to win my first major. So that was
The good thing about Bossy there, he kept it under his hat as he crossed the line. He's really,
Oh, you're
really
very
reserved
composed.
reaction.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
went off your brain. That
Well,
was so good.
the world's richest 2-year-old race. You got to celebrate.
Here's an interesting thing for you.
Yeah.
Ladbrokes have Bossy,
Yes.
they have Jimmy Cassidy, they have Damien Oliver.
Yeah.
They've all ridden slipper winners.
Mm.
The one thing they have in common, the three jockeys, they had never sat on the horse that won the slipper before they got to the races on the Saturday to ride it in the slipper.
How can you do
Bossy,
that?
Flying Spur, and Sebring. He got on
Sebring, yeah.
Sebring because Blake Shin had been suspended.
Yep.
Jimmy got on Ha Ha because Gai said, "You're going to ride one of my horses in the slipper," and Jimmy wanted to ride something else. She said, "You're riding Ha Ha." It won the slipper. And Damien came up to ride Forensics in those beautiful poo brown silks they had
Yep.
for the anniversary of the slipper, Forensics, and it won the slipper. They'd never been on them before.
Yes.
How can you do that with a 2-year-old in the biggest 2-year-old race in the world, never having sat on the horse, and all of a sudden you got to steer the thing with 15 other lunatics going on around you as well?
Well, you'll do the form and the video replays, and you'll get an idea, a sense of what that filly or colt has to be, what's their best asset to win the race. And then you'll study and do the form like Munsie does. You'll sit down and do the form, and you'll do your own speed map, and you'll find out, okay, what is my horse's greatest strength and what's its best chance of winning this race. And then you work out the pattern of the race, and you try and fit yourself into that pattern to give yourself the best chance. And then you just go out there and lock and load. It's there's a lot involved, and it's 2-year-olds. As Munsie will tell you, we'll see this on Saturday. The ones that have been winning will just probably go off. They'll just drop off the radar because they're young horses and they're temperamental. But that's what you do. You just go out there and lock yourself in and get the job done.
So tell us about your second one then. Blake Shin,
Yep.
who's coming up hopefully as a
Yep.
guest on Who's the Boss. He's done you a favour and got rubbed out. He would have been over the moon about this. And you get a ride for Gai, out of nowhere, or was it expected? You were always the reserve for
No, I
this
was
horse?
riding in Hong Kong. So Blake got suspended the week before, and Carnival time they kind of put the screws on you a bit harder. Like normally you get grace period, but through the Carnival, as I say, if you have a misdemeanor, we're going to put you out, right? So Blake got suspended, appealed on the Wednesday. So the collective fields aren't really out just yet. So he got suspended, lost his appeal. Gai rang me. She worded me up, and she said, "If you lose your appeal, get on the plane." So I rode Wednesday night in Happy Valley. I got over on Friday and got my back, got it on him. And an interesting part about that race, Muns, the track was a bit off that day. It was a bit wet. And typically Rose Hill, they all try and go to the middle of the track because it's just the pattern of that always is.
Well, that's what we saw last Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went out and walked the track, and I kind of figured out the inside wasn't that bad. It looked chopped up, but it was actually not that bad. And so I thought, well, I'm going to stick to the inside, and I did. I stuck to the inside and weaved my way through and got up and won. And yeah, poor Blake, But Blake rang me, to his credit, the night before when I arrived on the Friday, he spoke to me for about 3/4 an hour on the phone, which he loves to chat, about this particular colt. He said, "This is how you got to ride him. This is his temperament, and this is your best chance of winning a race." So he did me a massive favour.
Gai's won 7 of them.
Yeah,
After being told by her dad that maybe
you can't do it.
you can't do it. So what does Gai do? Goes out and does it
Of course she
multiple
does.
times. She's never, I don't think from a punter's perspective, outside looking in, Muns, you can tell me otherwise. She's ever gone into a race saying that this horse can't win. She's always this horse.
No,
is
that's
going
when
to
she's
win.
got 5 in the one race. She
Yes.
tells them,
They
she says
can all
like,
win.
they
There's
can
going
all
to
win.
be a 5-way dead heat. What's she like before a race like that? Is she like brimming with confidence and happy, or is it like telling us one thing but telling the jocks, hey, listen, another thing?
Yeah, she's very good like that, Gai. She's what you see is what you actually get with her. She's very confident woman about what she's about to do. Race day, she very rarely tells us what to do. She understands that we've done our job, and she'll, with the owners in a bit of a powwow before the race, she'll make it a bit of theatre. You know what I mean? She'll tell you, but we've already spoken, so she knows exactly what I'm doing, and I know exactly what she wants me to do. So that part's already done.
What's the best winner you've seen of the slipper, Muns?
Oh, Miss Finland, because I was on it.
Yeah.
Nothing like
Oh,
self-interest,
mate,
is there?
well, yeah. Well, how do you think, I got here today? No, you tend to remember the ones you're on because your whole focus in a race when you've had a bet is the horse you're on. So you've only got eyes for it. You could see but it's only you see whether it was a good win or a bad win when you go back and you have a look at the race again.
Yeah.
Because your whole focus is on a particular horse. But there's been, Crystal Lily was an amazing win in the Golden Slipper when she ran off the track.
That's right.
Belle Du Jour is the most famous, what's the best way to describe it? Shock win, because when she missed the kick.
Yeah.
And
then everything that followed with Singo, which we'll get into.
But the actual running of the race, she will go down as the most famous winner of a Golden Slipper in the circumstances after missing the start and coming from where she was to actually win the race.
Were you there that day?
No, I wasn't. I was at a wedding actually.
Oh,
who
has a wedding on Slipper Day?
My cousin got married. My daughter was one of the flower girls or something. I'd only just that was Belle Du Jour was 2000. I hadn't worked for Cole Tidy for about 6 months.
So you just worked for Cole Tidy, the bookie, and just stopped working for him?
Yeah, I stopped working when I got a job in December of '99. So I stopped working for Colin before I went and got a job. I was on Crown Glory, and I'm in the wedding at Coogee with a transistor, or as Frank Hyde would say, a transistor. And you're there like that, and I'm on Crown Glory, and you never ever forget it. Terry Bailey said, "And here comes the winner, Crown Glory." And and then he said, "On Crown Glory, oh, Belle Du Jour, Belle Frankish win." And
Come from the clouds.
You shouldn't swear in church. There was quite a few people looking at me at the time. I'm sort of stubbing the ground and everything like that. And then I didn't know the background to the story because my wife Denise worked for Cole.
Yeah.
And then, she meets me up at the wedding, and I said, "Oh, what about the slipper?" She said, "Yeah, you were stiff, weren't you? On Crown Glory." She said, "Not as stiff as Cole." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, Singo backed it to win $1 million. And I said, "I beg your pardon?" He said, "Singo backed it with Cole to win $1 million. And they're trying to get as much off of that go because he didn't bet with that long to go. And he couldn't get a great deal of it off it, And then I said, "Oh, geez," I said, "I don't feel anywhere near as bad now than I feel as bad for Cole." But that is another folklore story of the slipper, Singo backing his horse to win $1 million. And the only reason he backed it, he wanted to have a ticket which said you win $1 million.
Just for the ego?
Yeah.
How good.
And the way that he punts, he asked the trainer whether or not he thinks it can run top 3 or whatever like that. So he puts the value of the 5th prize money on the horse. And it was 10,000, I think, in those days to run 5th. So he had 10,000 at 10 to 1.
Yeah.
So to win $1 million. And then that was the day, of course, he shouted the bar. What's his famous words? He said he was being interviewed by Johnny Tapp after the race. And Singo's got his hat backwards and everything like that. And he had his long hair and everything. He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Free piss in the public bar." Not the members. He said the public bar. And he said, "We'll go all day."
Yeah. Now, I've heard stories. I wasn't there that day. I've heard stories that 2 hours later, that joint looked like, the Cantina bar in Star Wars, where you just walk in, you go, "Man, there's some interesting looking characters in here. A few things going on." You got Jabba the Hutt in the corner of it. It was like that, apparently.
Yes.
It was just on. It was just on. And everyone was having a great time.
And
all because of Singo.
And our former Prime Minister, Hawko, he actually was part of that bet because he didn't want to bet. And Singo said, no, you're on with me. And he's gone, oh my God. So he's got part of that, half of that money.
I reckon it's 100,000 he had on it at 10.
Yeah, it was 100,000.
100,000, not 10. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Good bookmaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there.
But that's,
Were you there that day, Bossy?
I was injured, I believe, that year.
Okay.
So I missed it. So, yeah.
But it's folklore, isn't it? It's like everyone remembers the day Singo shouted the bar.
Well, I mean, that's what this race does because, if you win it with a colt, they're instantly worth 10. If they just got okay breeding, they're worth 10 million, right? If they've got breeding, they're worth 15, 20 up. You just start naming your price. And if you win it with a filly, they're worth a fortune as well. So it can change people's lives, this particular event.
I've heard if the good jocks get on a colt and they do the business for a big stud or whatever like that, they get a service fee if they go on to start breeding horses with that colt for the rest of time. They that opens that door for them. Does that happen?
Tell the truth. Come on. Come on.
I started that.
Yeah.
No, I started that.
You started it?
Yeah, way back. No one was doing it. See, what happened over in England and France
It
and all
happens
that.
over there, doesn't it?
Well, that's part of their contracts. So these jockeys are there, but no one ever did it in Australia. And I started it with Fastnet Rock back in the day. He ran third in the slipper behind a Lingy. Was it Lingy that year? No, not a Lingy. No, who was he behind? Anyway, but I knew he was beautifully bred, and I said, if this horse ends up being the horse, I think
He's a cool horse. wasn't he?
Coolmore. I said, don't give me any slings. Don't want anything. All I want is a lifetime nom to him. And they said, yeah, no problems. And I started that trend and ended up with a few others. So now it's a bit of a done thing. Not all studs do it, but a few of them do.
They should. God, steer one home in a golden slipper.
Yeah.
$1 million colt becomes a $20 million
20,
colt.
30.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Stormboy last year was going to be a $50 million, wasn't it?
Oh, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Interesting to see where he goes over in England this year.
Muns, Kerry Packer, were you on track any time that Kerry Packer decided to waltz on? 1987, there's a famous slipper day where Merlin, where Greg Hall decided to get out on the turn and make sure he got
I think
out.
they had a good bet that day.
Yes, yeah. Well, his sling was 300,000, and Kerry said, "Well, that should cover. That'll cover the fine.
Yes,
that'll cover the next 3 months that you're not riding. So is that enough?"
But 1987, didn't he walk on track and the turnover went from here?
Yeah, roughly the bookmaking turnover had been around, the highest it had been in the last few years had been about 9 million. So Kerry turned up at the Carnival then in 1987 and the bookmaking turnover was 40 million.
Wow.
The tote only held 21. Yeah, it didn't mind a bit. And when he'd ring and all he'd say, Packer here, that was not, g'day, how you going? Packer here, I want this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce McHugh was the guy that he used to have a good battle with.
Well, Bruce retired on what he'd earned off Kerry. The reports, there's a lot of truth in some stories. There's not a lot of truth in others. But the figure bandied around was 30 million. And Bruce said,
wow.
I'm retiring because I can run out.
Yeah.
Kerry won't.
Correct.
You'll wear him down. As you're saying, he'll wear me down. Yeah.
I shit myself when I had 50 on. $50.
Yeah, but you're having your last, or not 50, but that's a great adage. People say, "Oh no, I've had my last on this," and it seriously could be if you've got a bank that you've got $100 to play with on a Saturday and you've got $10 left. I'm having my last 10 on this. Well, Kerry can't because his bank's a lot bigger.
Yeah,
it's like when he played cards. And it might be doing 3 or 4 million or something like that. And do you want to have a real bet now? Yeah. Okay. Well, chips in and away you go.
It was the famous story when he rang. He wanted to know he missed the race. Keep on doing that. There's a famous story. He missed the race of his horse called Easter, and it was at the Randwick Carnival. And he rings the Channel 9 Sports.
Daryl Eastlake, I think it was.
It was either Daryl Eastlake or Ian Maurice. Maybe Daryl Eastlake. He answers the phone, and he goes, "Packer here." He goes, "How'd Easter go?" He goes, Daryl Eastlake. He goes, "Oh, it was good, Mr. Packer. We went up to took the family up the coast and blah, blah, blah." And he's going, "Not your Easter, dickhead, the horse." So he was very forthright. And that was all. Kerry Packer was the reason why Channel 9 News on a Saturday would have a little racing segment for 2 minutes.
But his father started that.
His father started
that, Sir Frank Packer. My dad actually rode for Sir Frank Packer.
Wow.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and his most famous horse was Journalist. was 330 to 1 to 4 to 1 one day and won.
Wow. Whereabouts, Muns?
I think it was Rose Hill or somewhere like
Who
that.
put it up 330 to 1?
Oh,
knowing
they
the
used to
owner?
put, crazy. It was in a welter or something like that, and Dad was only an apprentice,
Yeah.
so it might have been first up or something like that. Yeah, but Frank started that. And I read a story once that, one of his horses had won and they used to put it on in the break in the movie or something like that.
Yeah.
They put it on and then he rang up after. He said, next ad break, put it on again. So they'd come on, they'd say, due to popular demand, we're going to have a look at again at so-and-so winning today at Randwick. Yeah, because Sir Frank wanted to see it win again.
Well, because when the cricket was on or something, they'd have the odds in the corner.
Yeah, but that
oh,
was
not
wide-
the odds, the winning odds. Is that right?
But
or
they-
The
something?
No,
results.
result-
Wide World of
oh, the
Sports used to,
result.
Take
Taffy,
away
Kenny
from
Callender.
the cricket to go to the race.
Yeah, Richie would
Oh.
throw to the races. Yeah.
Yeah, come back again.
And Taffy
Yeah.
and Kenny Callender would be on track. Kenny Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
I can remember all the Channel 9 coverage.
At
Yeah.
the cricket, I can remember going to the SCG. They put the results up in the big screen.
That's right.
as well,
yes.
all the time. We had Mark Waugh on earlier in the thing. He
Oh, he tells
demanded that the race be put up
Yeah.
there as well.
He tells
So-
a story. I'm sure he was playing Sydney Uni or something one day, and he purposely got out because the
Cockfight,
tab
yep.
wasn't
Yeah.
too
Super
far
close.
away from
Yeah.
Sydney Uni. Yeah.
Yeah.
trotting down Parramatta Road in his cricket whites, going into a tab. Fantastic. Sick beats in the slipper. We've talked about some great moments,
Yep.
but had any sick beats, Bossy, where you go, oh, there could have been 3, it could have been 4, not 2?
Not really. No, I've never got off one other slip and say that should have won. I ran second, away game ran second one day behind Farnham, but Fastnet Rock ran a great third one day, but he wasn't a 2-year-old. The only one I would say, well, 2. Can I say that? I rode Schnitzel, who was the champion 2-year-old at the time, or the good 2-year-old, and he was such a beautiful horse to ride. He would stand the barriers just basically half asleep, but he'd always be the first one to break.
Yeah.
And he was like that this day, and the horse beside me kicked out, Muns, and he thought the barriers were open, so he's just gone bang, hit the front of the barriers and then come back, and then sort of stood there. And the vet said, "Is he okay?" And I said, "Well, I think he's okay," because he went back to what he was before. What he'd done, he had actually fractured. He'd actually had a fracture, and he bled. He was bleeding out of one nose. I couldn't see it.
He needed a
Subsequently,
HII.
Yes, he did. So he ran down the track. I got off him. Fucking, what's happened? And all this blood's come out of his nose. He actually fractured his.
Poor bugger.
He had a fracture. Yeah. So that was one that should have won, because the horse that won, he smashed. He'd beaten them all. So
Yeah.
Anyway.
It hasn't done him any harm, Schnitzel. He's
Schnitzel.
23 years old and he's
Yep.
probably one of our greatest ever stallions.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a great horse. And smart missile when he got his leg over.
Yeah.
That was another one. He was favourite, and the vet pulled him out without even trotting him up. I was furious. I went off like a 2-bob watch at him, and then had to go in front of the stewards while I swore at the vet. But
And what was said on that occasion?
I
Mate,
just said,
you can't
no.
behave like
Well,
that.
I just beep, 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 give it to him, because he never trotted him up. They
Yeah.
always have to trot him up,
Yeah.
and he just pulled him out straight away. And so that was a bit of a shocker. He should have won.
I remember, was it 2003? I had to contact my good mate Josh Kay, who's got your entire list of Golden Slipper rides here.
Wow. Okay.
How funny! 2003. I was actually working at the races for Channel 7, and you got beat. You ran second,
Yes.
and my job was to. This is before Sky has started to
Yeah,
do
I forgot about that
Beat
one.
jockeys.
beating
Yeah.
jockeys. I've gone up to you. It's the dumbest question, and it got the response it totally deserved. It
Yeah,
was
it
there to
did.
be hit, and you hit it. I went, "Oh, Bossy ran second. It was a pretty good run, mate. How do you feel?" And you just looked at me and you went, "How you reckon I feel?" I just ran second in a slipper, and he stormed off.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Fuck, that would have been me 200%. Like a Bob. Fucking
But
Jesus.
it's high stakes.
Yeah.
Like it's a massive race.
Well, you only get one. There's only one Golden Slipper every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they start with 3,000 or something nominations.
Yeah.
Candidates, yep.
And then there's 16 max go round.
Before we get to this 16, have you got any other yarns?
Probably in
Mums that-
Costa del Lago was
Oh, that was.
he was stiff in a
No,
slipper.
that's the beer I beat him on Sebring.
Hmm.
So
From
Hayes,
Costa de Hero.
the Hayes boys.
Yep.
He earned the name actually Imposter de Hero in
Yes.
Sydney. Yeah.
They
yeah.
backed him early days, and I know the people that were involved.
Yeah.
They started backing in Costa del Lago well before, And that's when I flew in and got because every time I seen Hazy, I call him a Costa Lago. He hates
Oh,
it.
so that's the Flying Spur one.
Yeah. No, that was Sebring.
Oh, that was Sebring. Sorry, yeah. Von Costa de Hero was the one. But yeah. What was your best result in the slipper, Muns, again?
Miss Finland.
Miss Finland. Any others?
No. It's paid for quite a few things. Fridges, lounges,
Well, it does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
You have a big. I've got floorboards paid by a Melbourne Cup winner one year.
Well, I always had the adage that if you've got it Saturday, Wednesday you mightn't have it. So I'd say to my wife, "How's the fridge travelling? How's the washing machine travelling? How's the lounge? Oh, probably go and get another one." Because one day I backed a horse called Oxford Prince.
Yeah.
It had run last at Cessnock, second last at Kembla. Was in a 1,600 metre race at Randwick. And I had a service. I was doing the pre-post markets. That's one thing I did do. I did all the pre-post markets when the bookies only put the market up after the previous race. There was none of this Wednesdays and Thursdays and everything like that. And I had a service and I said to everyone, now, I'm tipping you, this horse will run a very, very good race today. Gary Nixon trained it. And I said, I've sent it out 33 to 1. I'll probably be at least 33 to 1, if not longer. It was 200 to 1, right? So I've had $50 each way. It's the first race at Randwick, 1,600 metre race, 2-year-old, come from last, won by that far. And I backed it with Cole, who I worked for at the time. Cole's walked back in the betting ring going, too good, yeah, too good. So, beautiful, there's 12,500. Gone home. Denise has got the champagne on the freezer and everything. Beautiful, well done, Dale. She said, well, a couple of days later, I'm off to the shops. We've got 3 kids under the age of 4 at this stage. I'm off to the shops. Might as well, give the 12.5 a fly as much as I can. So about 4 hours later, she rings up. What's the matter, Dale? I've got some bad news for you. Oh, what do you mean? Someone's pinched the car.
Oh.
I said, I beg your pardon? She said, I've got back to the car in the Bankstown Square shop, the car park here, and the car's gone. No. And it was a beautiful Fairmont Kia with these spoke wheels, white wheels and everything. A beautiful car. Called it Richard Gear. And she got back. She said, the car's not there. Yeah. I said, well, no, I can't. No. Rang the coppers. Car's been stolen. So I got no car. So the next week, next Saturday, everyone's ringing up, mate, thanks for that tip and everything. Oh, no, it's been a bad week. Bad. What do we mean? I said, well, someone's pinched my car. Oh, don't worry about it. I don't need one. Yeah, you can have mine. These are the sort of blokes. I was tipping a bloke that, owned a cake shop and bookies as well.
Yeah.
So a bloke let me a car and everything like that, right? The insurance money came through 3 and a bit weeks later. The insurance, right, that 12,500 check's coming. The next day, the coppers rang. Oh, we found your car. It was a Campsie on bricks. All they did was pinch the tyres because they were the good, the wheels, right? Yeah. So it's been carted to a smash repairs and everything like that. And the bloke says, how much is it insured for? I said, no, it's insured for 12,500. He went, pity there's a crack on the underneath part of it. I said, how do you know that? He said, pity there's a crack in the underneath part of it. And I said, mate, do you fancy a drink? And he said, oh, yeah, don't mind a scotch. I said, I'll be back with a bottle of Johnny Walker Black for you in about half an hour. So I got back and he said, you need to get anything out of this car? No, lovely. So get everything out of the car. And I said, thanks for that, mate. He said, yeah, good luck to you and everything. So then I got the 12,500 and for the winner and 12,500 with insurance. I bought a new car for 25,000. So at least I did something with it in the wash up.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. And a shout out to all our fine car insurance people out there who
NRMA, actually.
Exactly. Well, let's get into this year's Golden Slipper, shall we? Looks like a really even field. 100%. Really even. At this stage, there's 4 fillies. The rest are boys. Woden is the favourite for Chris Waller.
Not anymore.
I think he's not
not anymore. Yeah, as we sit here right now. So
Tempted's favourite.
Tempted's favourite. But
see, this is a situation. Sorry, the only reason Woden has been favourite is the liability. See, now with the slipper, you bet on the slipper for 3 months, right? Now Woden went up with Ladbrokes. I think he went up 100 to 1, right? So there was a rap on him for a while. Like Waller's got a very, very good 2-year-old. Right, Waller, and Chris until a couple of years ago wasn't regarded as a 2-year-old trainer. Shinzo won the slipper, right? Now Waller's got a very, very good 2-year-old. And then, the first day trial at Rosehill, well, there it is. People put 2 and 2 together.
Yep.
This is it. So he was very, very heavily laid all the way in. And when he had his first start in a race at Rosehill, I think he was about a $15 chance to win the slipper at that stage, which is very, very short for a horse that hasn't had a run, right? And then he won his first start, still won by 5 and everything. Next minute, he's a $5 chance. Next minute, he's $3.50, which is absolutely unheard of in the slipper, a horse having one start on a wet track and beat absolute walking machines at Rosehill, and he's $3.50 to win the slipper. Well, he's got out. So what happens, all the bookies that are betting pre-post, they've got to hold him there because the liability that they're facing on that, they can't get any more money out of him. You'll notice he'll continue to drift as he has done as they start to get, more money in for other runners during the race. But he was definitely a false favourite.
Okay.
There was no way he could be favourite on his last run at Randwick.
Chris has chucked winkers on him, Bossy. What does that do for a 2-year-old? So winkers are better than nothing, but not quite blinkers.
Yeah, correct. They're what we describe as what we talked about before. They're like
Paint rollers.
paint rollers on the side of there. I mean,
The horses must feel like absolute dickheads walking around in those things.
Well, in Hong Kong, they call them cheek pieces.
cheek
cheek
pieces,
pieces.
yeah. But they can have an effect on some horses.
It's a concentration thing more
It's a
than anything.
concentration thing, yeah. But the thing is, reading the language and the landscape of what's been said, the horses peaking third up, and and I'm not going to question Chris because he's very good at peaking horses, but the fact that they've thrown the winkers on as well is a bit of a warning sign to me.
They're trying to find something.
They're trying to find something when they said they're not trying to find something. They said, oh no, the horses needed the run, he's peaking. So that's what I'm a bit wary of. I haven't got him in my first 3.
We'll get to Bossy's best and Munsie's mail towards the end of this podcast. But, I mean, how do you see how the race is run? Have we got enough pace up front to string them out?
Well,
or is it going to be a weird one like a couple of years ago?
No,
when
well,
they
see,
walked,
all
or-
of the speed is middle to outside. Like North England's got 9, Military Tycoon's got 12, and then Bellazine's got 15, Bavark's got 16, Farsighter's got 17, and King of Pop's got 18. So they'll come in a couple. So the speed is all middle to outside, which is concerning for those horses that are drawn low, because in the old days, it was carnage on the first corner in the slipper, right? If you didn't have the speed, you drew 1 to 5 in the slipper and didn't have the speed to hold your spot, go into that first corner, you're in a world of pain because they carve across on the outside. And then if you're not travelling, to be up there, next minute you're another 4 pairs back in a lot of trouble. Right. So these horses that are all drawn inside, your Tempteds, your Rivolinos, and those sort of horses that have been back at their last couple of runs, they'll be much more forward on Saturday. Like Tempted at its last 3 runs has drawn, I think, 9 of 10, 11 of 15, and 10 of 10.
Yeah, and she's had to be
It's got
dragged out of
barrier
the race.
1, right? Expect it to be 3 pairs back the fence.
Correct.
And Blake's too good. And he'll tell us later on anyway how good. But expect some horses that have drawn wide at their previous 3 or 4 runs, that have drawn inside in the slipper, to be much more forward and being able to hold their position. Because when they've drawn wide lately, they've just been, as Bossy said, they've just been jagged back to get out of the fact to cover ground. They've like Rivolino, for example, his first run to race at Randwick, he was up 4th, travelling on the bit. And Huey, there's another genius rider in a slipper. Huey's not going to be there, dragging him out the back. Yeah, so that there'll be good speed. There'll be good speed in the slipper, all coming across. So, and those horses that are going to hold their spot, that's going to put more speed going to the first corner.
Yep.
Barriers, how important, Bossy? I
Very.
mean, does it supersede absolutely everything else in a slipper, a barrier?
Barriers can definitely make the big difference, yeah. I think your history will say lately, low draws are the winners. And especially when you've got a field like this where it's very even, it's very hard to find the winner. There's no standout, so barriers become very, very important.
Yeah, you look at a horse like, I think you've got a story around this horse that I'm about to mention, Muns, King of Pop. So it's drawn 18, Zach Lloyd in form. The Ryan stable like it. Last time a Black Opal winner came and won the slipper was 99.
Catbird, yeah.
Frank Cleary.
Catbird, yeah. And I literally put one bookie out of business. Catbird, yeah.
That
It
wasn't
got
very
beat its
kind.
first 2 starts in Melbourne and then Sydney, and then won 4 races in a row. Won at Randwick twice. won the lead up to the Black Opal, won the Black Opal, and came to the slipper. It was only about what price was in the slipper? I was about $6.50 chance a slipper, but it had been triple figures for a long while.
Yeah.
And
Got a piece?
And one bookie, he I don't think he'd bet that many times pre-post on the slipper, and not too long after that, he wasn't there anymore.
Yikes.
Yeah. Mark de Montfort, one of the
Montfort.
greatest money riders.
Yes.
Yeah, we used to call him Triple M, Mark the Money Muncher, but he was very, very good.
Yeah,
very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just couldn't win on Just Blooming the year we were on it, but that didn't matter.
But are there ones like that which you look at it and you go, oh, the barrier can strike a line or
Well, they're
like
probably-
outside 20-1? It feels like a race where literally anything could pop up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The field's so even. It's kind of, is that one that's drawn wide good enough? Has it got that 2 lengths? Is it 2 lengths better than anything else to overcome that barrier? No, I don't think so.
See, he was up outside the lead in a very, very fast run, Black Opal with far-sighted. So there they are. They've got 17 and 18 in the slipper. Do they ride them? Well, far-sighted realistically only knows one speed. He goes forward. But if you're on a horse that draws wide that's been going forward, do you say to yourself, well, as Bossy just said, have I got 2 lengths there that I can afford to go back instead of going forward to try and give it a kind of run and be 2 lengths further back than you thought you would be? Can he make up that?
See, Muns, if you're in that situation, all you're doing then is hoping. Which you don't. That's not a very good game plan. You've got to go out there and really commit. Okay, this horse's asset, he's got speed out of the barrier. So you commit. You make sure that's your best asset. If you get across into a good spot and you're not good enough, you're not good enough. But if you go, well, I'm just going to ride it back and hope I get in and things work out.
In a normal race, you'd do it.
Yeah, but not in the slipper. But if you have that game plan, you are. I promise you, because you're not going to get the luck in the slipper. There's too many good riders in too much of an even field. You're not going to get the luck.
Yeah, there's a stat going around that something like 12 of the last 15 Golden Slipper winners have been on the fence in run at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes through it, how rough it can get.
Yeah, I know. But
Can you get it a bit willing?
It's very arduous. Yeah, I mean, because it's if you go out there and treat this race like a normal race, you're kidding yourself, because it's actually a high pressure stakes. There's a lot involved. Every owner thinks they can win the race. So, and that potentially what they can see the outcome of if you do win. So it's high pressure, and the jockeys do feel it. You can literally, it can change your life, but it can change so many other people's lives. So there's that element of it.
I think it's time that we get into our selections for this year's Golden Slipper. So here we go with Bossy's best.
Well, I'm with Tempted. Blake is arguably the best rider on current form in Australia right now, I would say. He's just seen it so well. We've been talking about this filly for a little bit, and when she come up with barrier 1, sent him an emoji with a big thumbs up, and he sent one straight back. So I just love these fillies. Like, she didn't have all the best of luck in the Blue Diamond, and has come back here and just keeps attacking the line. And I like to watch them after the line, what they're doing. If they're still running after the line, okay, that's the one. If they're getting there and they're peaking on the run and they're sort of winning, but that's as far as you can see them go, this filly just keeps running through the line. I love that. So I like her.
So she won the Riesling and half a second quicker than the Todman, which is the other big lead up 2 weeks ago, the prototypical lead up months to a slipper. What have you got on top?
I've got Mahuna. Now, Tempted beat it the other day at Randwick, but it had a month off coming from a Canterbury win to that race the other day. Now, they went 9/10 of a second quicker the first 600 in that race. So she's up on speed. Tempted was back in the race. So the race unfolded for Tempted. I just think the price differential. Now, on Saturday, when she was a question mark to get in the field, she was 50-1.
Wow.
She's now $10 that she's into the field. And I just think the price differential between the two of them is too far. That's the way that I do my form. It's all very much price related. So if I don't think there's much between them and one horse is double the price of the other, I'm going to be on the horse that it's the greatest price, because I think I have
maths.
to be value wise. You've got to be on the other one there. But
So-
I think she'll run a very, very great. I think, the month off, 2 weeks off, she's drawn well. As I said, I think there'll be plenty of speed. She's got the ability to be and hold her spot in the early. Tempted, as I said, she's gone back her last 3 runs from wide alleys. She's got 1 alley, right? Albeit her first runner race at Warwick Farm, she was travelling just behind the lead. But you've also got a flicker switch. And she's gone back her last 3 runs. It's just not a matter of going, righto, girl, today you're going forward from 1 alley. So she's only got to be a little bit slow away or just doesn't have the speed to be there. And it could be a horror story on the first corner. I'm not saying that she won't be hard to beat, but she's not entitled to be half the odds of Mahuna.
Yep.
So Michael Freeman and Damien Lane combined. with
Both
Mahuna.
previous slipper winners.
Can I ask you a question, Muns? Like, obviously, with your experience, and you will frame your own market for this slipper. What price would you have Wotan if you just sitting here?
Double figures.
Double. There you go.
Minimum.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as I said, there's no form in his first race. Now, another case in point. There's Wotan that's roughly around a $5 chance. West of Swindon is $26 in the slipper. He's the best roughie in the slipper by far and away. Now, I think they've had a change of plans with West of Swindon. I thought he was going to miss the slipper and run in the size, like they did with All Too Hard many, many years ago. But they trialled him the other day at Randwick.
Yep.
He was down to run last Saturday. I think he pulled a shoe, pulled part of his foot off. Now, he worked Monday morning. So that's
and
nothing.
Hawks wouldn't run him. He wouldn't. He wouldn't run him.
Hawks
Okay.
wouldn't, and especially a colt.
No.
Right? So how does he become $26 when he beat Wotan home in the silver slipper? He was first up that day. Wotan had already had a run. So he's got to have more improvement left in him than what Wotan does, and you're getting 6 times the odds.
Yes.
So once again, he's the wrong price, Wotan. He's the only reason he's that price is because what's happened in the lead up to the slipper in the betting.
And do you think also the glamour combo of Coolmore, J-Mac?
Oh, certainly,
Wallace?
certainly. Well, that's we penned the phrase the J-Mac tax. Well, he rides more winners than anyone else, so you're going to have to pay. You're not paying a premium.
He's on 4 favourites on Golden Slipper Day for a reason.
Yes.
Well, he's on 4 favourites. He went to Wyong on Wednesday, and I think he rode 4 favourites there.
Yeah.
The first one won by that far. One started odds on, run last. You can't pick them up and carry them.
What else do you like, Bossy, in the race?
On the day, I thought Within the Law would
Yeah.
run really well.
the Derby horse.
Yep. So it's another one who just keeps, regardless of the circumstances, wide runs, it just keeps finding the line. That's the horse I look at.
Fair enough. I've picked one out, and you say best roughie. I've gone away from that best roughie. It's 20-1 around the back. Tycoon Star.
Mm-hmm.
So Zara,
Yep.
known to get
Drink
into a
the
bit of
champagne.
that.
Is there a
next day.
sporting event he can go to on Monday after
He'll
the
probably
Super Bowl's over? The
didn't
baseball
go to
season's
Super
just
Bowl
about
this
to
year.
He
start.
enjoys his wins, doesn't he, Mark Zara?
Oh, he's probably most celebrated jockey at celebrating that I know, but he's a good man.
I think one of the horses has been forgotten about, even though he's only a $10 or $11 chance, is Rivellino.
Yes.
It's as my great mate Ronnie Duffy says, beware the unbeaten horse.
Mm-hmm.
3 starts, 3 wins. Another case in point where he's gone back at his last 2 runs, drawing wide. Huey Bowman draws inside Saturday. He is the benchmark form 2-year-old in Sydney. He's got form with Skyhook's got form around him. All these, within the law, all these horses have got form around Rivellino, and he keeps winning. And everyone says,
It's
you
funny,
don't
Muns.
really hear his name being mentioned a lot.
Isn't it funny about our game? People can ignore the obvious in a lot of ways because it's unbeaten colt. Oh, its round's going to end soon. So they'll completely ignore that obvious fact that it's a winner. It probably just is just a winner. And they'll bet around him because they're thinking, oh, he's got to come to an end soon. Might not be.
Might not be. So Golden Slipper is the highlight of the day, obviously, the biggest of the Group 1s, but you've got the George Rider, you've got the Ramvet, you've got the Rosehill Guineas, you've got the Galaxy as well. So 5 Group 1s doesn't happen pretty much anywhere else in the world, I'm pretty sure. 5 Group 1s in one day, maybe a Breeders' Cup or something like that. Gents, enjoy the day. Via Sistina goes round as well.
Watch her.
The best horse in the land. So
Yes. Broadsiding, he'll bounce back, I reckon.
will?
Yep, I like him. So it's going and Cryo off is another one. We'd like to see him bounce back. Chao Wolf.
Chao
Chao Wolf, sorry.
Wolf, yeah.
Chao Wolf,
I was
reckon.
desperate for Briasa to get a barrier in the Galaxy, and of course it came up with barrier 15.
Yes, it did.
It's flying.
It's flying.
Yeah, well, see, Private Harry's in that race there. There's Private Harry going into a Group 1 race on Saturday, coming off
Unbeaten.
a benchmark 64 win at Hawkesbury. I think it was a 72 or a 78 at Rose Hill, and the win at the Sunny Coast, significantly all on rain-affected tracks. Strikes a good track, hopefully, on Saturday. I think he's under the odds in the Galaxy.
Well, Muns, best of luck with your selections this weekend. If you have a win, you can maybe go and buy a horse at the Easter sales and call it Car on Bricks or something like that.
Yeah. Or
Just for whole time's sake.
Richard Makybe.
Yeah, 100%. mate.
Just before we go, I've got to mention the crew at IPE Events. They're putting on a great event this week at the Golden Slip. A bit late to get involved because they sold out pretty quick, didn't they, Bossy? But ipevents.com.au to check out their great corporate experiences at some fantastic events this year. British and Irish Lions, Origin. They had the Grand Prix. They're about to have the Golden Slipper. Plenty more on the radar as well, Bossy. It's
Plenty
good to get
on.
involved with.
Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday with IPE, and it'll be a great day. I can't wait to get out there. It's mouthwatering, the contests and what's going to happen on the weekend.
It's the best day racing in Sydney by far.
Yes, no doubt.
Looking forward to it. Glen Munsie, thanks for joining us for our Golden Slipper
Thanks,
special.
Axel. Thank you, Bossy.
Mate, thank you.
Best
I really
luck, mate.
appreciate your wealth of knowledge, and it's just fascinating to hear your stories and the way you go about your business. I find it very fascinating.
The best thing about storytelling, even some of them are true.
Yeah.
That's Who's the Boss. Perfect way to end it. If you like our content, hit the like button somewhere down here.
And if you want to subscribe, right here.